Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest episode of Tales from Outer Space, taken from the subreddit HFY. The links to all the stories will be down below, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. And if you do, please consider subscribing. Story number 1, Standard Regulation, written by bellumaster. Ricky took a shot across a medium-sized office into the waste bin. The crumpled up bit of paper conked off the side of the bin and fell to the floor. Nailed it! Ricky stood up in one of the 4 workstations in an airy room. It was bright and cheery, quite against the common idea of government workspace. But then again, technically it wasn't government. It was only one of our main governing branches that balanced one another while abiding by a higher, more vague rules that a majority of advanced intellectual species had agreed upon. Even if it was explained on paper, it was a hot mess. But it worked, for now. Waste energy, Ricky, walk, drop, efficient. The voice wasn't dull or droning, but curt, with no give. It was Golam, his manager, one of the Kazim that had beaten the human system into place. When humanity had made contact with the heavens, the Kazim had been waiting like none with a switch to trim the fat of governing bodies, and no amount of red tape could stop them. It had been a hectic 20-something years, but what remained was more reminiscent of a racing pit crew than a department of licensing. If things needed to happen, they happened, and fast. Strict regulations were imposed on nepotistic habits, while false advertising and advertisements in general were burned at the stake. Humanity's government, stripped of the fat of complacency, now ran with an efficiency of energy that would arouse jealousy from the engineers of our first satellites. It worked so well that Ricky was almost bored. He got up, strode over to the bin, and put the crumpled ball inside before heading back to his seat. Golam tracked the motions with his slow eyes, never moving so much as a muscle. The Kazim waited until Ricky was back at his workstation to admonish him again. Wasted energy, Ricky. So you keep telling me, boss, you should see me play baseball. You'd have a stroke. Limited energy, conserve, long live, centuries. And again, that's not how it works for us. I got maybe another 80 years left in me, and I'm not gonna spend it like a sloth. His description was apt. Golam reached across the desk for another one of the permanent applications with a curious slowness of movement that could be compared to a sloth. The paper crinkled in his stiff digits as his hand was pulled back towards him. Paper they'd been allowed to keep. It wasn't the same kind as the one he'd been back on Earth. That stuff was collectible at this point, but it was still paper, pulped and pressed from what was apparently the optimal fiber available for its production. The Kazim didn't mess around. Everything was optimized and built to last. Ricky flipped through the few papers on his desk before settling on one handle. Suddenly, a loud thump issued from outside the workspace, with a loud roar following. The workstations trembled as an enormous creature jammed itself into the room, huge and scaled and bearing plenty of teeth in its mouth. Ricky sighed. I am very upset, issued the translator in his head, several times shorter than the verbal scream that spewed from the creature's mouth. Ricky wondered how accurately the translator would handle Minesh profanity and where the settings were to adjust it. Golam looked up slowly. Calm. The man roared again, furious and loud. Minesh physiology was huge, serpentine, and often compared to the Chinese dragon of mythical Lamia. Their planet was a lower gravity yield and was covered mostly in swamps, which led to their great size. Ricky took a step towards it. You are upset. My name is Ricky, and I'm here to help you. What is your name? Golam spoke again, cut and curt. Hermit. The big, Medusa-like creature squirmed. Lockharvest game, Garita. I filed a complaint to the main office, but it'll take too long to go through. A day is too long. The Grub Foreman Festival is half a cycle, and I cannot be tardy. I am upset. Ricky nodded.
You are trying to get to a grub-forming festival within a half cycle. A quarter of one, if possible. If possible. So what is the issue? Vestema, why are you upset? The massive creature fell still, body squeezed in within the doorway. I chartered a vessel that's too small. I cannot fit inside. Ricky looked at Gollum, who did nothing. He looked back at Vestema. It's fixable. I can charter one of local cargo vessels to take you, but it will be ready in a cargo vessel. Have you no properly sized vessels? Not these tiny, cramped boxes you claim lovable. I've been eating my own tail for 2 cycles, now waiting for these accommodations. We do not have the Menish-compatible civilian vessels at the moment. We can charter a cargo vessel, or you can take a small one. Vestema thrashed around a bit in frustration, becoming even more wedged in the doorway. Why is everything small? There are Genrans, Tarians, and Demay, yet still everything is puny. Normative average, Golam said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. What did you call me, you? Ricky quickly placed his body between the two. What the good Kazim said is that there is an average size, and our facilities reflect the needs of those who use them. Average? I'm below average size, and you still can't. Numbers, planets, if everything exists on a bell curve, then the standard planet is at the center, which is why we call it a standard. Yes? Vestema grumbled, which came through as a translator as an affirmative. Then the standard planet size, on an average, with all things being equal, will eventually produce a standard size being. Would this be correct? Yes. Ricky motioned to the doorway, 4 meters high. Therefore, the majority of buildings, civilian housing units, and chartered transport vessels are built to accommodate those standard sizes. Does that make sense? The men were silent for a moment. What harm would it be for you to have surplus of larger vessels? None, if I'm honest, but the larger species don't tend to travel as much for some reason. It couldn't possibly be due to the discomfort and lack of amenities, could it? I took the jab off guard. Ricky paused. Vestema had him there. Okay, maybe. Could be. Tell you what, if you can handle riding on a cargo vessel, I'll see I can add another 2 civilian transport vessels for the sector's fleet. How does that sound? Good. I'm no longer upset. I'm glad. I'll make the arrangements now. You'll receive the details shortly. Vestema grumbled and then shifted a bit in the door. Its body had a girth out of a missile. It was wrapped in the tight coils of the door frame. Ricky and Golam watched in silence as the large creature squirmed and shifted. Vestema, are you all right? I am stuck. Golam slowly rose and walked over ponderously to the door frame. It took him at least 3 minutes, all the while Ricky stared, aghast. This was the first time in 4 years he'd seen Kazim stand up from his desk. He even ate and slept there. With a sudden burst, Kazim rammed the bulky body against the men's coils, and they both burst from the doorway to fall in the hall. Vestema wiggled and unlooped Golam from its coils. Ricky gawked, eyes wide. My gratitude, Kazim. Farewell. The huge serpentine creature wound its way from the hall and back to the civilian area, leaving Ricky bent over Golam, helping him up. Golam, are you crazy? What was that? Energy, Ricky. Well spent. The Kazim shrugged him off and began an arduous trek back to his desk. Ricky shook his head and returned to his workstation, where he promptly filled out the appropriate digital forms and paper invoices and sent them out so that Vestema could make it back to his festival. Then he finished the form that he'd previously been working on and crumpled it up now, then a redundant invoice into a ball. Am I clear to requisition those 2 civilian Leviathan transport vessels? Golam answered from where he was, still several feet from his workstation. 3. Save energy in future. He nodded, then turned to the corner of the room. Ricky took a shot across the room towards the waste bin, and the crumpled piece of paper went right in. He pumped his fist. Nothing but net, baby. Efficient, Ricky. End of story.
I hope that you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider subscribing. If you wish to support the author, there is a link to the original story, so pop over there and give him your support. If you wish to support this channel, however, there are a few ways to do so. The best and easiest would be to share this video with other people, as well as liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. All of these things tell the algorithm that this channel is at least vaguely interesting, and that may share it with other people. If you wish to support the channel in some other manner, watching my other videos would also help tremendously. Or, if you really like, there is a link down below to leave a tip or to join the Patreon. Any and all support is very much appreciated. And I hope that you all have a good one until the next time, and I'll see you then. Cheers.